Hi everybody, this is FT Raw. Welcome to part 3 of the drive and crash box tutorial. In part 1 we have made the general car setup, and in part 2 we have prepared the car for collision. In this part we will extend the setup to get deformations on our car model. As you remember, we have here in the chassis section our springs that are realized by sweep NURBS objects. It springs here. In the collision section we now can attach a deformer object. So we have the choice between spline deformers and FFDs. I decide for FFD because spline deformers are rather slow and FFD are easier to handle. So let's create an FFD. Drive has already set the size, but due to a bug in Cinema 4D, or I don't know, this is not displayed at once. So as soon as you increase the values, you see the box is displayed right. So let's increase here the resolution. Some more in that. So we have a first deformer. Okay, so we can make another test. We have still our box object here. So let's frame it. Okay, let's run the simulation and see what happens. Oh, nothing happens that's because we haven't assigned any object to this FFD by now. So here you find a new folder called Deformation, and in it there is the FFD. So we need to assign some objects here that we want to be deformed. Of course, the body. Let's take a look. It's already working. So I think the underbody also has to be deformed. Hide this box. The grill. For the grill I have some other plans, so with the exception of these below objects, I will not let the grill be deformed by the FFD. I'll show you later why. So let's split this grill objects. What do we have here? Okay, this. Move out and group. To make it a bit simpler, I will move the rest of this grill to the FFD deformer. Let's take a look again on the parameters of the deformer. Here you can set up the strength. So if I increase the value maybe to 150, you see it's a very strong deformation. 100% is good for our purpose, and vertical deformation, you can define the strength in vertical direction. So if I set it to 150, You see that the FFD Deformer is higher. Okay, let's reset. The value of 80% is good for our purpose. So this is the FFD. Let's take a look from the top view. I will switch off the polygons. As you can see here, the FFD vertices are moved according to the movements of these collision detection points. These points can also be used for another type of, let's say, destruction. You can stick objects to the outline that will be moved with the deformation of the outline. So I use this feature for the headlights and the grille. First, rewind the simulation. Let's bring the object. You can see the FFD is resetted, of course. As usual for Drive, let the plugin create the object you need. So a new object is created inside the collision group, and in this position folder we can now move objects that we want to be moved according to the deformation. So we have first the grille, the other part of the grille, and the headlights. So the headlights, both are inside a folder. We have to move them out. Okay, let's name it right and left. Okay, let's switch on polygon objects. So depending on the position, that means the position of the axis here, you can control the depth of the movement. As closer this object origin is at the outline, the deeper it will be moved in this direction. So if you want objects not to be moved so much, just move the axis far away from the outline. So in our case, I think this looks good as it is. Oh no, we have to move, of course, the axis here to the object. And the grille, okay, can move it here to the center. Okay, so let's make another test. As you can see, the grille has come off the hood. This is what I want to achieve. The headlight has moved a bit too far. So let's move the axis a bit far away. Let's try again. Okay, you can see this. The headlight is still outside of the shape, and that's what I want to achieve. Okay, this looks good for now. Next we want to get this typical crumpled hood that you can also see in the movie. Therefore we use joints. Here you see the rig of the hood. I have to admit that I'm not very familiar with character rigging. The trick is simple. We will put these goal objects in the positioning group, so when a crash occurs they will be moved backwards And as you can see, the joints will deform the hood. So let's undo this. I will copy the whole rig to our setup. So let's find the old hood. Okay, let's delete this. Don't place it in the deformation group, because we want to get the deformations from the joints. So we put the hood here outside of the deformation. And these goals, we move it into the position folder. Okay. So let's make another test. So here we get this crumpling of the hood. Next we want to add some shatter effects on the headlight glasses. Let me first create a camera so that we can return to this view later. Here is the headlight, let's take a look. This is the glass. We'll make a new folder and call it Shatter. As you can see, here is another piece of glass. By now it's here in the deformation group. I will move it also in this shattering group. So now let's create a shatter object. And place it here. As you know, the shatter object will shatter all the objects on the same level inside this shatter group. Okay, let's take a look what happens. Okay, it just falls down. And dissolves. Okay, I will set this insize parameter to 2 so that we can see a bit more. Let's add an explosion object so that the splinters are not just falling down. Move it also to this group. Okay, let's see what this object will do. Okay, it's very strong. And it dissolves also, so I will set this N size also to 2. Next we need a bit XPresso stuff to control these deformers. So we create an XPresso tag. Move the object here and select the output section. You find all the outputs of the simulation. So we need this collision time parameter. This gives us the time in milliseconds when the collision occurs, and we can use this value to control our deformers. So let's select the strength. So the strength is a percentual parameter, so we need values between 0 and 1, and these milliseconds are between 0 and I think about 150. So this would approximately this be the time the collision takes. So we need this range mapper. To convert our values that are expected to the values these deformers need. So let's connect this. Okay. So let's take a look what happens and start the animation. Okay, it runs very quickly, and the main problem is that after the collision is over, the glasses are again intact. This is because the collision time is resetted after the collision, and so it gives the value 0, and then these objects are set to 0 again. So we have to make some additional logical settings in XPresso, but before I want to set a slow motion so that we can better see what happens at collision time. So let's take a look when the collision occurs. Takes 77. So I will set here a keyframe for the time scaling. And I will duplicate it because we want the slow motion occur very suddenly. So I set this value to 2.5. So let's start again. Looks rather good. I think the explosion is a bit too strong. And maybe the slow motion is too slow. Since we connected the collision time to the strength, we can use any slow motion percentage, and these explosions are calculated in the right timing. So first I will reduce the explosion strength a bit. Multiply by 0.75, and this will be a good value. Okay. But now this shatter object is better to see than before, so that some of the elements fall down the floor. So let's set this slow motion a bit faster. Let's take 10%. then you can see the problem I described a few moments ago. You see that suddenly the explosion disappears, and as I told you, this is because the collision timer is resetted to 0 when the collision is over. So we have to make some additional logics in the XPresso wirings. So we have to differentiate 3 cases: before the collision, during the collision, and after the collision. Since we have set up the FFD that it will be switched on not before the collision occurs, we can use the state of the FFD to make a simple logic. So let's disconnect this one. So we need a bit more room here. Okay, we have the special case that the collision time is null, but the FFD is enabled. So we need first to test the collision time and compare it if this is enabled and the collision time is null. The output of the equal check will be true, and then make a switch so that if this is true, we will make here a constant that will be used instead of the collision time. So let's repeat. If the collision time is null, it may be before the collision or after the collision. But if additionally the FFD is enabled, it's after the collision. So if this both is true, we have the switch that uses the constant. Otherwise, and this is only the case during the collision time is used. So we can use this output, connect this output to the input of the range mapper. So we have to set the constant and set it to 100, because the input mapper will map it to a percentual value. Okay, so let's start. So you see this explosion will not be resetted, but there is another phenomenon that we don't want, that it's the explosion elements are fixed to the car, so we have to find a solution to make it global, independent from the car movement. So we have to fix the explosion and shatter object to this place. So let's take the coordinates of the collision box. It's mainly this Z. Let's take 2300. So we go to vehicle, XPresso, need some input channel of the global position and global rotation. Same for the shatter. Rotation set to 0. So we need a constant of type vector connected directly to global rotation, and another constant For the position, we use this 2300, put it to the position. So let's see what happens now. As you may have noticed, there is still a break in the behavior of the splinters. This is because we have to adjust the value that is used when the collision is over as well. So for this purpose, I put a result node here and look at the maximum collision time. So here now we have 139, and then it switches back to 0. So this is when the collision timer is resetted, and then this value is used, so we have a break. So we only have to adjust this value. We can also adjust the input value of the range mapper to 140. So I hope that now the result is a bit better. Okay, I think it's a good result so far. In the next part we add a crash test dummy driver and an airbag. See you!